Welcome to Legacy Lounge, the podcast where you'll discover how to lead with purpose and build a legacy that matters. I'm Brinna, your host and leadership coach, and I am here to guide you on a journey to experience a life of fulfillment, both personally and professionally, without compromise. In each episode, we'll uncover the power of leading authentically, starting with self-leadership. Because true leadership is not just about directing others, it's about inspiring them to willingly follow your lead. So if you're ready to step into your full potential, show up authentically for yourself and others, and create a lasting impact on the world, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Just imagine. It is 3 a.m. inside of a Target store. The lights are humming. There are boxes and freight and items everywhere. And there I am, a bright-eyed, ambitious store director running around like a crazy person. What happens next would completely change how I view both failure and leadership forever. Today, we are talking about that thing that nobody wants to discuss, failure. You know that feeling, right? That pit in your stomach when something goes horribly wrong, or that voice in your mind that is telling you you're not good enough. Well, what if I told you that your biggest failures might actually be your greatest asset? Stick with me, because I am about to show you why. Let me take you back to that Target store. There I was, determined to prove myself as the youngest leader on the team to everyone, including my own team. The weight of the expectations was heavy. It was on my shoulders, and I really tried to handle an overnight replenishment idea all by myself. Because that's what good leaders do, right? At least that's what I told myself. Oh my gosh. I can still hear the sound of boxes hitting the floor. I can feel the sheer panic that was rising in my chest as time was just ticking away. And by the morning, we were so behind schedule. The team was stressed out. I felt like a complete failure. But here is where the plot twist happens. That night actually was not a failure at all. It was the wake-up call that I desperately needed, and one that I would never change now. That night at Target taught me something crucial about leadership. It's not about being a hero. It is about empowering your team to succeed together. But sometimes the universe needs to teach us some lessons a few different ways before it can really stick. Which brings me to a few months ago. Picture this. It's 2 a.m. Apparently, all big moments in my life happen in the middle of the night. But it's 2 a.m. and I'm laying in bed and I'm staring at the ceiling, tossing and turning, trying my best to not wake up my husband again in the middle of the night. But I was wrestling with a very heavy decision, and it's one that would change everything. There it was, a Target NDA. For those who don't know, NDA is a non-disclosure agreement, meaning take the money and stay quiet, or keep my voice and walk away. My inner critic was working overtime. Brinna, just take the money. Don't rock the boat. Don't cause a scene. Don't make an issue. But here is the thing about being an influencer from the DISC profile I spoke about in a previous episode. Our voice isn't just what we do. It is who we are. For 2 weeks straight, I would wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat and pure fear in the decision that was weighing on me like a ton of bricks. I was absolutely terrified of sharing my story on LinkedIn, where my former target colleagues, my mentors, my role models, they could all see this side of what I was dealing with and what was going on behind closed doors. What would they think? Would I burn any bridges? Something deeper kept pushing me forward. And that same lesson that I learned years now prior at 2 a.m. inside of a Target store with a disaster that I have self-inflicted onto myself made me realize here I am again. In the battle that I was facing inside my mind is that, to me, authenticity is more important than comfort. Want to know what happened when I finally decided to share my story? It exploded. Over 8,000 views on just LinkedIn are what I was now looking back at. And here's the crazy part. Of that 8,000 number, only 34% were from my target network. That means 70% of the people who connected with my story were complete strangers. It resonated in my message of choosing authenticity over security. And you know what's funny is the failures that kept me up at night, they then became the foundation for my business, Legacy Fulfilled. Because every single struggle, every single moment that I thought I had failed or I was actively failing, I was actually being prepared in a different way to help other leaders find their voice too. So here is where the rubber meets the road. I've talked about it before, but a failure resume can be incredibly eye-opening. If you haven't done this exercise before, let's do it together right now. I want you to stop what you're doing, unless you're driving, of course, but take out your phone, open your notes app, and let's do this. So first, write down 3 moments that felt like absolute failures. Maybe it was a presentation that you bombed, or a team project that went really sideways, or it was a difficult conversation where you wished you would have handled yourself or something differently. Okay, got a couple? Good. Now, next to each one of these, we are going to do something radical. We are going to find the gift inside of each one of these. Let me explain what I mean by this, and I'll use my prior example from my situation at Target. Failure, the overnight disaster. The gift was learning that true leadership happens shoulder to shoulder with your team, not from above. The result of that failure was that I was able to take the lessons learned and build better team relationships with stronger results. Another example, that NDA decision, the failure, potentially burning bridges and losing some hefty financial security. The gift, finding my voice and my purpose. The result was creating a company, creating Legacy Fulfilled to help other leaders step into their own authenticity. So here is my challenge to you. And yes, this is homework. I promise I will not have homework on every single episode. This week, I want you to first complete the failure resume. Don't just think about it. Actually write it down. Second, I want you to share one of your failure to freedom stories with somebody on your team. It's important that it's with somebody on your team because you will then be able to watch what happens when you choose to lead with vulnerability. And third, pay attention to how you talk to yourself when things are going wrong. Are you someone that beats yourself up? Are you someone that is looking for a lesson? Because here is what I know now that I wish I had known as that young, ambitious store director. You are not defined by your failures. You are defined by how you choose to rise from them. And sometimes the moments that feel like our biggest failures actually become our greatest opportunities to show others what real leadership looks like. If anything from this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear your story. Drop me a comment, connect with me on socials. Better yet, pass this episode along to somebody who you think could benefit from hearing it. Until next time, I encourage you to keep failing forward. Keep being real. And remember, your struggles today are tomorrow's success stories. This is Brinna. Thanks for joining me on the journey of authentic leadership. That's it for this episode of Legacy Lounge, a podcast dedicated to empowering you to lead with purpose. Remember, leadership begins with you. When you're connected to your values, strengths, and authentic self, you show up powerfully for your team, businesses, and everyone you lead. To authentically lead others, you must first lead yourself. I challenge you to consider, how are you investing in your personal growth to create a legacy that you envision? Thank you for joining me in the Legacy Lounge. If this episode sparked any thoughts or inspired action, I'd love to hear from you. I'm your host, Brinna Rollins-Williams. Connect with me on LinkedIn or other socials, and let's continue the conversation. Remember, your legacy is built one intentional step at a time.